Hey everyone. Okay, this video is for you if you are spinning your wheels, super frustrated, are kind of confused, and are doing all the things in terms of, trying to teach to your child's learning style and researching how to do that and so forth. So I'm going to talk today about what you need to know. And I want to be clear, it's not all bad. Obviously, teaching to learning styles is important and we all have learning styles. But we need to be aware of when that can become problematic and what is a better solution. So I'm going to offer some suggestions on what you can do and so forth. So like I said, learning styles can be helpful. It's like I know for myself, I retain information much better when I read it than when I hear it. And other people, it's the other way around. However, we need to be careful with kids who have learning disabilities that we are not over exercising or overstimulating a certain area of their brain that's already overstimulated in terms of has, excess connections, is overdeveloped, and then further creating an imbalance with the area that really needs that stimulation, and that's why there is these learning difficulties, gaps, glitches, wherever they are on that spectrum of learning challenges. So it can be a bit of a cop-out depending if it involves that we're not addressing the underlying cause. So for example, I'm going to give an example, and I want to be clear, I'm not saying it's all bad. So right brain instruction for kids who have dyslexia. Not all bad. A lot of kids get good, some kids get good results from it and so forth. I'm going to be totally honest. I prefer to take an approach where we can do right brain instruction, but I would rather stimulate the weaker side of the brain because, dyslexia, we know these kids read from the right side of the brain. That's what makes it so difficult and challenging because the language center is on the left side. I'm, as a practitioner, more interested in stimulating that left side of the brain. And I'm going to get into the reasons why in a minute. So, basically, there is, lots of parents I talk to who spend a ton of money on these specialized programs. And I'm not just talking about right brain instruction. There's so many different approaches that focus on learning styles. And again, they can be helpful. But number one, there is a challenge with some of them can take years to see the results. I have parents who said they saw results. It was great, maybe for one child or, another family member. And then for someone else in their family, they spent years doing this type of instruction and really didn't get the results they hoped for, but were told it's going to take a while and they didn't get those results and, had dropped all this money and all this time and all this energy and frustration. And then we all know what happens. I've talked about this before. Kids get, intervention burnout, and then they just think, I can't be helped, and they shut down and their self-esteem suffers and so forth. So the other problem is that I will have parents that come to see me and say, you know what, I realize we're doing this thing where it's taking forever and we have to teach it to his style or her style and the teacher has to do it and they're in a special school. But I'm really concerned because what happens when they get to college or university or the real world? People aren't always going to teach things in the way that my child needs to learn. And then what do I do? And so forth. So let's get into what are the three main problems with programs that focus on one particular way that, a child with a learning disability or with this problem or that problem needs to learn. So number one, a lot of the times it's not identifying the individual weakness. So one thing that drives me nuts, I was talking about this yesterday whenever I was doing an interview, is it really drives me crazy whenever I hear about protocols. I almost have an aversion to the word because I don't believe in protocols. There can be a framework of, okay, we know kids with dyslexia, we need to stimulate most likely the left side of the brain. But how we're going to approach that for each individual child is going to be different for each individual child. So we can't say, this is the protocol for dyslexia. This is the protocol for dysgraphia. Or this is the protocol for ADHD or SPD. We need to look deeper in terms of what is going on with that child on a biochemical level and what is going on with that child in terms of, their neurology, in terms of their brain structure, and what we need to shift. So that's the number one thing. We need to look at the individual, not just the problem or the diagnosis. Number two is These programs, a lot of them, particularly with reading, are fantastic at a certain point. Okay, so again, it's not about attacking programs and tutoring and so forth, but they focus on with reading, for example, they focus on reading skills, or with dysgraphia, they focus on writing skills. But they're not focusing on the systems, the brain systems, the lower brain levels that are needed for these skills to occur. So we can do all the phonics practice we want, or we can do all the fine motor handwriting practice we want. But if, for example, with handwriting, if there's poor gross motor development, the fine motor development is not happening because gross motor precedes fine motor. And with reading, we need to have solid auditory processing, and that's going to start with the auditory cortex on the left side of the brain. So we can do all the phonics drills we want. If that area is weak, we need to exercise that first. And so if we don't do that, if we don't work on primitive reflexes, sensory motor and visual motor stimulation, as well as cerebellum development, improving auditory processing, balancing the brain hemispheres, we are probably still going to have kids who are stumbling. They might be, way further ahead than they would have been. But my thing is, if we can get them there, get them to a even better place, by addressing the root cause, that's where we need to go. The third problem that concerns me the most, if you will, with interventions that focus on just teaching to their learning style and not really addressing the root cause of why, if there is a glitch, it's that it can exacerbate other problems that they are already having. You're reinforcing those connections that they have that are really, really strong. And that's, has some pros and cons. So for example, if you only do right brain instruction because your child has a right brain overdevelopment, left brain delay, you're going to create a greater imbalance with those brain hemispheres because that right side of the brain is going to get stronger and that left side of the brain is being left further and further behind and not getting that stimulation. And, basically what happens is, so the left side of the brain is where the language center is. We know that. So let's say we do the right brain instruction, the child is able to read, but because we haven't reinforced that left side of the brain and the right side of the brain is overcompensating now even more, the left side of the brain is also responsible for fine motor skills. It's responsible for logical thinking, short-term memory, sequencing, math, and I could go on and on and on. And so a lot of the times these kids don't just have a difficulty with one thing, right? Parents will contact me because they're most concerned about poor reading or poor writing or whatever. But a lot of the times they have other concerns or things they've noticed, but they're like, well, we can live with this, but reading is survival in our modern society. So when you just teach to the learning style or one side of the brain, you're really leaving that other side behind and you're not addressing the overall problem and challenges. And what's going to happen is these kids might have more problems with short-term memory, more problems with math, all of those areas that are, left brain functions. Or if you're teaching to the left brain and our right brain functions, right? This can apply to any difficulty. So we need to address the lower brain levels. We need to address primitive reflexes. And if we don't address these other issues, then what's going to happen is we're still at a level of compensation. So all of these issues, and I think this is what I really think is important to be aware of today, and really, I really want to drive home, is that all of these issues are related to biochemistry that's imbalanced, and brain levels that are disorganized or weak or underdeveloped. So whether your child has dysgraphia, dyspraxia, dyslexia, ADHD, SPD, ODD, OCD, the list goes on and on, or all of the above or some of the above, those really are symptoms of the biochemical imbalance that's affecting brain chemistry, as well as the brain disorganization that's occurring, and again, affecting learning, focus, mood, all of that type of stuff. So yes, we all have learning styles. No, it's not bad to teach to a learning style. In general, teachers are encouraged to do this in classrooms. Kids definitely learn in different ways. We all know this. So I want to make that really clear. But when only teaching to a specific learning style is the ultimate solution to a learning difficulty, it makes me a bit nervous because of these problems, particularly that we're reinforcing those connections. And when we're really trying to resolve an issue or a challenge, we really need to exercise the weaker side. So think of it as, you have an injury, and instead of fixing the injury, the doctor says to you, you're going to have to really strengthen that right arm because it's already strong. So let's make it even stronger. And you're just going to have to lift everything now with your right arm. And to you, that would probably, hopefully be ridiculous. And you would say, well, why wouldn't I just strengthen the left arm as well? And if the doctor said, well, no, the right arm's already strong. Let's, it's going to take a lot. It's going to take work to strengthen that left arm. We really don't know. And that would just seem ridiculous. So this is kind of how I feel what we need to be careful of and be aware. Yeah, it's going to take some exercise some stimulation to strengthen that weaker brain hemisphere or whatever the weakness is. I'm giving that example, but we need to ultimately do that if we truly want our child to overcome their challenges so that they have a brain that's functioning at its optimal potential for them. So basically, in terms of what you can do, so you might be wondering right now, what can I do at home? So what I wanted to do, because I know a lot of the parents that I speak to, their biggest concern is their child's reading or writing, right? Dyslexia is like breathing in and dysgraphia is like breathing out. So I'm going to give just a little list of simple things you can do at home if you suspect your child has a weak left brain and a overdeveloped right brain. And that's very common when a child has learning disabilities, reading difficulties, writing difficulties, and so forth. And so things that stimulate the left side of the brain, like this is not exactly what I do in my program. It's a little bit more physical and so forth, but these are still great things that you can do. And these are things that stimulate the left side of the brain. So things like puzzles, brain teasers, Sudoku, crosswords, right nostril breathing. So literally closing the left nostril and breathing through the right nostril will stimulate the left side of the brain. Routines. So one thing that the left side of the brain loves is routines. So this is where our right brain kids can sometimes be like all over the place and disorganized and kind of chaotic. And it's a challenge for them to stay in a routine or have a routine, but it's really good for them to do that. So that's where you go for it, get them in a routine, start off slow, get them used to it and so forth. And you might really see they're, just feeling a lot better. And then even just exercising the right side of the body. So again, in my program, I work with clients and they have an outline once we do the screening in terms of what they need to do to stimulate that weaker side of the brain. And there are some of its physical movements. So there's things you can do for that as well. But just at home, if you're wondering, exercises that stimulate the right side of the body are going to, by definition, stimulate the left brain because our brain and body works cross-laterally, right? So then and then music. So music is known to stimulate the left side of the brain. It's the auditory cortex, right? That's on the left side. There's lots of studies showing like Mozart stimulates the left side of the brain, play some classical music in the background. My program, we do sound frequency therapy, which stimulates the middle ear, which stimulates the cortex and the vagus nerve and does all kinds of other great stuff. But at home, this is a great starting point. So let me know in the comments below if you've experienced some of the frustration of a focus on just managing the problem, or you see the benefits of learning style, but you feel like this is not an end-all be-all solution. And do you see any signs, or what signs do you see that suggest your child might have a weak left brain? So let me know whether you're watching the live or the replay. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'm going to put a link in the comments below so that you can grab my laser focused learner kit. And if you are interested in knowing more about my 6-month program, the full potential formula, I'll put that the link to book a clarity call in the comments below as well. Have a great day.